Brace yourselves.
Hello?
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Ben has notes open.
I do. I do have notes open.
He's looking scared. He's looking concerned.
Thank you.
He's been sweating profusely for the past 5 minutes before
Only a
I
little
hit the
bit.
record button.
Only a little bit of sweating. Only maybe a lot.
Just a lot.
It's fine.
It's the middle of winter here too, so that's like
That's because I'm wearing
notable.
this big ass jumper.
I don't know why you walk around wearing that jumper all the
Because it's a nice jumper. It's a good jumper that I've had for like 10 years. And I haven't washed it once. Straight up. I haven't washed it in 10 years. That's not true.
It's no wonder it smells so much.
I know. I need to put it through the old washer dryer.
I just have
machine.
to come through my room with a flamethrower every time we record just to like cleanse the smell, and then my furniture's all gone and I have to buy new furniture. This is a very expensive show to run.
It's a good jumper though. Come on, it's worth it. I paid like very little for this thing, and I got it because the cute girl at Smick Surf said like, man, that jumper looks good on you, and I was like, it's mine forever. And that's the story of how I have this jumper.
I really like jackets in general. I just can't wear them because it's too hot all the time, even in winter.
Yeah.
The only time I've ever been able to comfortably wear a jacket was in negative temperatures in the middle of winter in a country that isn't Australia because we don't get negative temperatures here.
This is true. Oh, look, I just like it because it's like wearing a big hug. That's how I feel with this jumper.
Wearing a big hug.
A big smelly hug, and
have we brought up our mutual friend's dog's thunder jacket?
No, thunder jacket.
So there's this thing. I don't know how common it is, but because I've known the guy for so long, it's kind of become normal to me. But one of his dogs has like anxiety issues, so they have this jacket that's meant to just simulate a hug, so that it gets less scared all the time.
I mean, that's a legitimate thing that was invented. I don't know who it was by, but I read a whole ton about it. This poor woman was like, I go into the cattle like trough, you know, when they go to be slaughtered.
Like, it's a totally reasonable thing.
Yeah,
the reason I love this thunder jacket in particular is because it has thunder jacket in big letters with a lightning bolt on the side.
It's just good branding. Yeah, it's not the hug machine, it's the thunder jacket.
Yeah,
the thunder hug machine.
Not a sponsor.
Oh, I wish. One day, maybe.
One day.
All right. Well, I have lots of stuff to talk about today.
Do we?
I do. Because I feel like I've been thinking about this a lot. Because normally what I do is I'm like, all right, this is the point in the story where I will talk about this serious issue. And with this, I was like, I can't wait till the end. We got to talk about it now. So...
Does that mean we're canceling the recap?
No.
Oh, okay.
We'll still have the recap. Although, let's be real, if this gets long enough, maybe it should just be its own damn episode. We'll see. Or maybe just throw it in the recap. Who knows? But I want this on the record so that I can
We should do some audio essays like we used to back in the day.
That'd be great. Maybe that's what this is. We'll see.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. But anyway, I have some stuff I want to talk about because we've had Renner's, great big cathartic emotional climax moment, but it's only halfway through the story and it's not all okay, and that's a weird narrative structure. And she's told us about her time with the memories that she can't quite remember because she was all drugged up and being looked after by the Japan mental health system, which is what I want to talk about because it's depressing. Many of you with interest in the Japans will know that Japanese mental health system is not great. It's getting better. They passed a law in 2006 that was the Suicide Prevention Act because they realized that suicide had become a huge, huge problem, which is a lot to do with the cultural background of suicide, mainly from the military, and how dishonor is such a huge deal. And so killing yourself, committing seppuku was culturally acceptable.
Right.
There are still instances in the news where people, business owners, have been like, I will now commit seppuku, and someone else is like, good job, you did the right thing, which is great. Yeah, Japan in general has a pretty bad approach to mental health by, I would say, certainly Australian standards. I don't know about American, but it does have good representation in some media, such as Neon Genesis Evangelion, and a manga by Tori Sugari, an artist who realized they were having depressive issues and decided to express it through their art. I couldn't find the name of the manga. All I can find is all of these articles and interviews about this guy who was like, I'm going to try and represent depression with my art, which I think is fucking beautiful. yeah, there's, I don't know, I wanted to kind of give a little bit of background on mental health and how it's kind of perceived. One of the things that I kind of found in my research was a term, kokoro no kaze, which is a kind of weird cultural phenomenon. The term means cold of the soul, and it indicates awareness of depression on the one hand, because that's what it means, right? That's what it's used to allude to. It's used to allude to depression. But it's more of a tool of like pharmaceutical companies to say, oh, you have depression, that's okay, just take this pill and it'll all go away. That's pretty much their slogan. So yeah, long story short, there's a lot of bad stuff going on cultural wise, and it's especially like relevant for Rena and what we've kind of had revealed over the last arc was seeing how Rena was treated when she was, diagnosed with all of these fun symptoms of PTSD, which is essentially what she's dealing with. We know that she was drugged up, and like we see that when she says, no, please don't give me the shot again. And they're like, how else do we deal with this? And that's something that's been really prevalent in medicine up until very recently, is that especially for a teen growing up in the Showa era of Japan with no understanding of mental health, you wouldn't be able to treat them properly. You would throw them in a mental institution, basically. We don't get a good look at that period of time in Rena's life, like a really close look, but that's probably a big part of what was going on between leaving Hinamizawa and coming back. For like a really good representation of institutions and treating mental illness in a way that is incredibly negative. There's a game called The Cat Lady, and it's set in America, so it's not for Japan specifically, but it's a really honest, horrifying depiction of how someone with those sorts of issues, particularly dangerous people that self-harm, people that try to take their own lives, people that try to hurt others, are treated. They get drugged up and strapped to hospital beds, and their like agency is completely taken away from them. All sorts of awful stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting, and I'm not, I haven't researched this in preparation for this. I didn't really know what we were getting into when you sat down with your pile of notes.
I know. This is what I want to talk about.
But, like, I suppose the interesting thing is, first of all, not to excuse, the West for treating depression and similar mental conditions appropriately. The range of crimes that are committed by people who are then pinned out for, mental health reasons.
Yeah.
Really says that there is a global lack of understanding of mental health. Yeah. And to some extent, I don't know how true it is because I'm not within the system, but at least the way that I see it portrayed in things like media, in things like the news, etc., it often seems like there's this kind of archaic leftover of old medicine where, we don't know what to do with it, just put it in a white box and let it sort itself out. No,
since the 1960s, when the modern world has started to kind of understand mental health and how it works, most Western countries have actually been decreasing the number of people who are kept in mental health hospitals. But Japan, at least the articles that I was reading from earlier in the 2000s, that number increased like by a huge amount, by like 30%. And the stay of a regular hospital patient, I think it was 2002 the article was from, was over a year. Right? Like if you are diagnosed with something mental going on with you, they don't know how to treat it. They don't know what the healthy thing is to do. They will keep you in the hospital for a year and just kind of hope that you'll get better, is the general kind of way of treating these things.
That's kind of part of what I'm saying is that like, for the West where we've reduced numbers, that doesn't necessarily mean that the care is improving. It might actually mean that we're just being lazy and haven't bothered to deal with some outlier cases. For
sure. I mean, this is a big part of The Cat Lady. I won't spoil too much of it because it's very much worth reading or playing rather. It's like a point and click, like side-scrolling adventure kind of game, but it's horrifying, which is great. But like, one of the antagonists in the game is a person of power in a mental institute, and they are a horrible, sick person who abuse their power. And I have no doubt that that sort of thing goes on in like mental health institutions to this day.
Yeah.
Which is, horrifying. But the kind of other side of this is that it is incredibly difficult to treat mental health. And it's not just because of a lack of trying to understand, but like figuring out what your, mental health issue is and figuring out what sort of help you should receive and when you're cured is a really interesting subject.
Well, yeah, because it's one of the very few medical sciences where experimentation isn't really possible without putting people in the line of fire.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the things where, like, as I was saying, it's kind of a leftover of old medicine where we see mental institutions as like this horrible prison-like place, when ideally they should be going through the same cultural renaissance that like therapy has.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
Where therapy has gone from being like, oh, you're seeing a shrink, bit of a weird guy, to like now seeing a therapist is acceptable, recommended, and normal. And ideally, like, any kind of mental health care should be seen that way, but a lot of it is still seen as like Arkham Asylum type shit.
I mean, that's the thing. I think it goes beyond just, oh no, maybe I'll look a bit weird if I have a mental health issue.
Yeah.
It's societal oppression and control. Control for me is like a big issue when talking about mental health, because I don't know if this is something that I picked up from somewhere, but the term that I use is the drug and forget attitude, which is something that we see with Renner. Again, it's something that we see in the cat lady. It's this tendency for society to say, well, we don't know how to deal with it, so we'll just move on and we just won't worry about it. And for somebody dealing with mental health, figuring out how to approach that with other people in your life and the pressure of trying not to act out or to kind of display that mental health can be a trigger in and of itself. It can be something that aggravates the problem. As we see with Renner, she tries really hard to keep that side of herself, that depression, that mentally unstable side of herself, hidden in a way, and then it all bursts out when it's triggered by her father potentially remarrying. When you're in that headspace, it's difficult to interpret what people are doing and saying as well. I could imagine that a regular person would see that situation, and even though it's, in the story it's bad, but saying, well, my father is, remarrying, that's good, he's moving on with his life, and being totally okay with that. But if you are under depression or social anxiety or any kind of issue like that, you are going to interpret anything that you see or hear as negative. And this is a problem certainly with people that I know with these issues, certainly probably with myself, that when someone is deep in the hole, it's very difficult to pull someone out of there. And this is why I suppose I want to kind of draw attention to Rikishi's... I mean, the fact that he has a scene where all of the kids like see what Ren is going through and try to pull her out of there, and that she takes their hand, like, especially for me reading the scene originally, that scene was huge. The idea that even though you've got all these feelings like clogging up inside of you that no one will understand or no one can help you, the idea that someone will be able to help you is, I mean, it's incredible. It was something that when I read this story, I certainly hadn't considered before. Not in any meaningful way. I'll tell you that when I was young, I went to a lot of psychologists for various things. And this is going to lead into why I didn't bring this up immediately after that scene, but rather in the chapter after. I will tell you that I've been to a lot of psychologists, not because I fought with them or disagreed with them, but because I would go to each one, and at some point they or I or both of us would say, "You're cured." They would say, "You're not exhibiting any of those violent behaviors. You're not exhibiting the same paranoia. We're talking normally. my behavior in general become more socially acceptable or whatever. And we would decide that we didn't need to see each other anymore. But, and this is happening incredibly quickly for Rena, but weeks or months down the line, that feeling is going to come back. And when I had that happen the first time, knowing that my parents had paid for a psychologist to fix me, and then knowing that whatever it was that I thought had fixed me had failed, I was far too embarrassed to actually ask to go back. I thought that I'd done something wrong, that they had done their job. You know, we'd paid a psychologist to fix me and that their job was done. But it happened over and over again. And I think even though I will say I don't have like a clinical diagnosis of chronic depression, the best I have is a note saying, Benjamin may have severe depression. We could diagnose him with that. I don't know why they didn't. I don't know why it's just a footnote on a whole other piece of diagnosis paper. I don't know what the fuck happened there, but I'm pretty much like sure at this point that that's an issue that I suffer from. And that's why to bring this, how long has this been? About 20 minutes of recording time to bring this all back around to the fucking story is why Rena and the fact that we reached the half point in the story and we have our cartoon anime ending of everyone does the right thing and we figured it out and Rena's going to be fine, that gets turned on its head and things are not going well for Rena now. That speaks very personally to me, that I feel like it's okay to fuck up. And this is another thing that I've always had a huge problem with. It's why I'm such a goof now. I might save a bit more of this for the recap, but when I was in school, I used to get pretty much straight A's all the time. Like, it's a bit of a meme, but like my IQ is very high. Like, like technically, according to the way I was doing school, going to advanced classes and getting good grades and getting the gold certificate and all that other horse shit that I don't care about 10 years down the line, I was a very promising child academically, but Higurashi, in a sense, you know, show me that it's okay to not be perfect 100% of the time. And also that once you fuck up once, you can fuck up again. You can go to a psychologist and they tell you you're cured, and then you come back the next week and say, I'm not cured, I was wrong. You can, you know, lose 1 mark on an important test that you've been studying for and not have a mental breakdown. You can tell your friend that you hate them and then apologize and make up for it. These are the sorts of things that I didn't really understand and that Higurashi kind of helped me deal with, because I didn't see this as normal. And seeing a character that I admired so much, like Rena, and of course Keiichi back in Kakashi, making these mistakes, it's difficult to put into words, but it's just reassuring. It's reassuring to see representation of a sort.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there is this kind of reputation for, like, you know, artists being damaged people, and that's something that you see reflected a lot, particularly I'd say in music, though not like exclusively, obviously. And I think that that's why you see so many people out there connecting so deeply with stories with messages like this.
Yeah.
Because surely out there in the aether of artists who are telling stories about this sort of thing, there's someone that's going to match your experience in a way that means a lot to you.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really awesome. Like, you know, there's a lot of things in this story and others that come across as like second nature to me that other people tell me are absolute mind blows.
Yeah. No.
And I take that as an opportunity to see how fortunate I was in the genetic lottery per se, relative to other people.
No, for sure.
And that's why, even though like I can barely connect with most stories.
Yeah.
I still appreciate going through them and trying to pick them apart and understand where they came from. Which is maybe where the like heartless monster thing kind of came from, because it's like, as I said, I can't emotionally connect with these
It's just
stories,
how you
but,
are.
Yeah, but they still mean a lot to me in terms of where I sit.
Yeah. And this, I mean, even that still fits within why I love Higurashi so much. As I say, Rena's story, and I would argue Higurashi as a whole, is a story about mental health. And all of the characters have these terrible, horrible flaws, and they all do horrible, horrible things to each other. And they're all different. And for me, that's a source of strength. The fact that the characters that we follow, like, if you think about their place in the classroom, like, they're always the ones being the most outspoken and making the most noise. They're always the ones doing the dumb shit. It's why I particularly connect with Ren and Keiichi the most, obviously. But, like, I've always struggled with the idea that your difference is what makes you special. Like, I always saw that as a bad thing. And I think that that's also a big problem in Japan. That's probably like a big part of why this narrative has come about, because Ryukishi sees that as a problem. He wants to celebrate that difference. And yes, reading media and experiencing stories that celebrate like incredibly neurodiverse characters is important. Representation is important. And I think that that's such a big part of why I enjoy this. God. I do have one more story to talk about.
Okay, we're already 22 minutes in.
I know. You can always look. You can cut this down, or you can do whatever you want with it. But I want to get all this out because I wanted to talk about stuff at the end of like a couple episodes ago, and now we've moved on. Now another shit now, and I need to talk about that stuff. I'll just say that following on from all the fun, depressive stuff, I want to tell a little story because I enjoy stories. I enjoy telling how I feel through what has happened to me and my like very visceral experiences. When I was struggling with depression back, I think it would have been the year before I read Higurashi, so 2012. I had a lot of very dangerous thoughts of self-harm in particular. I will say that I have never self-harmed, but I always thought about it. And the main reason why I never did is because I asked my parents, I asked them why someone would do something like that. And they said it was a cry for help and for attention, which in some ways isn't like, is accurate, you know. Somebody who self-harms has like a reason why they're doing it. They have problems that they need to fix, and they're trying to fix it by hurting themselves, you know, whether it's the like feeling like they need to feel alive and real, or whether because they feel like something within them is gross and needs to be taken out. There's something fundamentally ruined about them. You know, they deserve to feel pain. But ultimately, the reason why I never did is because in my history class, I was doing some research into the topic, and I stumbled upon a forum. And I can't tell you what the name of the forum is. I can't tell you how to find it. But I remember it being the most spiritual experience because I opened it up and it was like a supporter board for people who self-harmed. And I could not functionally comprehend the messages I was reading. People being like, I went a whole 24 hours without hurting myself. I feel fantastic. And then the person below them saying, I wish I could do that. I wish I could be as strong as you to go that long without doing something like that. And I couldn't believe what I was reading, you know? Like, that is so far out of my own experience. And this isn't like a media product. This is real people being so supportive of each other. People who are damaging their bodies, who are, you know, whether other people know it or not, and they're just coming together and trying to help each other. It was such a beautiful sight, and I knew that if my teacher saw it or if someone else saw it, then they'd put me on a, you know, psych ward or something. But reading that, you know, was just such a mind-blowing moment, seeing all of these people coming together on just an internet forum to talk about such a subject. I don't know. Maybe maybe you guys in the comments will have a better way to put it than I do, but I just want to kind of share that little anecdote there.
I don't really think I have anything to add there.
I don't know that anyone would.
Yeah.
It's an experience that I will never forget, and it has affected me in such a strong way. But it's so, like, I cannot explain to you why or how or, like, how that even happened. I just remember being completely engrossed, and I would read it every lesson, every history lesson. I would sit down with my laptop at the back of the classroom, and I would troll through board after board of these people talking about the different ways that they were hurting themselves and just destroying their bodies and apologizing to each other and helping each other through it. It was insane. Anyway, I think that about does it.
Yeah. No, I think...
So, I'm not the person who edits this, but I wanted to put that somewhere because I don't know where else it'll go with this playthrough.
Yeah.
I don't know where else to talk about that, but I feel like it needs to be said. That you, as a fucking human being, will have the most absurd experiences. Anyway.
God.
Yeah. And that was me, what, like 17 years old? Just reading that.
Fucking teenagers, I swear to God. What is with teenagers?
I don't know, dude. Anyway, that wasn't as intense as I thought it would be, honestly.
No, I mean, I feel like us sitting next to this damn golden microphone spewing shit is too goofy of an atmosphere to ever get, like, any more serious than that. Not to say that there's... not to say that we won't or can't.
No.
But, I don't know, I feel...
Yeah.
I feel like this is a comfortable place to discuss these things, especially in the context of a story that is so openly dealing with them.
Yes.
Like...
This is why. I mean, this is why I want to talk about it now.
Yeah.
I could wait for shit to happen, or I could just say it now, and that's the context. That's the context of this story.
I also think that, like, going forwards in the story, looking at how we react to these various experiences, it's perhaps more interesting at this point to know where you're coming from than me.
Yeah. Sure.
Because, like, there's less for me to solve. There's a lot more being thrown out on the table just blatantly that hasn't really required me to engage with it as much in my super analytical piece of shit way. So I don't know, I'm looking forward to going forward here and look at Keiichi kind of going through a similar state to you, because that's my theory.
Keiichi?
Yeah. Maybe.
Have I mentioned that I love both Keiichi and Rena equally at this point? Fucking hell.
We've only had Rena so far, so there you go. Hashtag Sumiharabushi solved.
That's the one. Yeah. Well, there you go. Alrighty, well, we should get on with the show.
Yes.
Get this depressive shit out of here, but seriously, go tell me how you feel in the comments. Tell me if what I've said makes sense. Tell me if it's fucking insane. I'd love to talk about it.
Alright, let's get on with this nonsense.
Yeah, let's go. Let's get going. It's about homing ability and homesickness, whatever that is.
I think, is this neutral?
I guess I'll just take it neutral. Let's go. If you interpret homing ability in a broad sense, you can say that most animals have a homing ability.
You know, now that I think about it, this is probably spooky, Rico.
You know what? Let's go with that. Flick it up. I'm doing the whole thing. About homing ability and homesickness. If you interpret homing ability in a broad sense, you can say that most animals have a homing ability. It's the same with humans. We like to sleep, rest, and eat at a place where we feel comfortable, namely our homes. Your home is to you what nests are to animals. Therefore, we can say that humans have a homing ability as well. First of all, why do animals need nests? The answer is the same for humans. Sleeping, resting, and eating are the essential actions for survival. At the same time, those actions leave one defenseless as well. That's why you need a safe area where you can be defenseless. Everybody knows that not having this safe area results in a high level of stress. When you move an animal to a new environment, it naturally becomes stressed. When you force a person to live in a foreign land where they aren't comfortable, they become greatly stressed as well. Everybody also knows that this kind of stress is called homesickness. The Japanese don't know much about homesickness. We defined it as mental weakness and we neglected to treat it for a long period of time. However, homesickness has a very long history. In Europe's Middle Ages, people believed that it wasn't a mental but rather a physical disease. People also believe that out of everyone, the Swiss got the disease the most.
Is that true?
I don't know. I know that ties into Japanese culture where they believe that, like, most mental illnesses are a physical, illness. That's why they created drugs to treat depression. Shout out to that stuff. The Swiss, you see, were known to be an ethnic group that worked away from home in that era. They lived far away from their homes. There were no telephones at that time, so they couldn't even hear their families' voices for ages and ages. It's easy to imagine that the young Swiss workers got homesick while working in a strange land. These Swiss who got homesick wanted to go home, but they couldn't because of their jobs. The conflict made them weak physically and mentally. Some of them went crazy and tried to escape from their reality by committing suicide or running away. The Swiss at the time were very superstitious, and many folk remedies and occult-like treatments to prevent homesickness went around. Since going home was the only treatment, they must have called it a fatal disease. But it isn't really one, of course. Specifically, homesickness is a sign of that human homing instinct. Your brain desires to go back to your safe area, namely your home. At first, your brain makes you remember the happy memories of your home, and it urges you to go home in a natural way. But when reason stops you from achieving your desire, your brain starts sending unnatural signals to your body. As a result, your body gets weak, and that makes it more difficult for you to live in a strange land. In the end, you have to bend reason in order to achieve your desire to go home. So, homesickness is born from our homing instincts, and the stronger one's homing instinct is, the stronger their homesickness. The strength of that homing instinct varies from individual to individual and depends on the environment in which those individuals live. When your home is safe and the environment you live in is dangerous, your homing instinct grows stronger. On the other hand, when the environment you live in is safer than your home, then your homing instinct becomes very weak. Safety isn't the only element that affects its strength. Cultural aspects affect it too. The many customs demanding families to return home for major events varies with each region, so your birthplace's culture also alters the strength of your homing instinct. Amongst these regions, the transcendents of Onigafuchi village were believed to have an excessively strong homing instinct. The people of Onigafuchi forbade their fellows from ever leaving. Many believe this is the effect of the elitism and sense of purity I already mentioned before. People today still strongly believe that Oyashiro-sama puts his curse on you if you break his rule and abandon the village. The superstition can be interpreted as homesickness. Yeah, this is probably talking to that I think about it. It's fine.
This diary that Ren is reading.
I know, I figured it out.
To us.
I know, I forgot about it.
It's more entertaining this way.
I know, it's fine. Let's just keep going.
So stop this. Carry on.
I know I will.
And don't mention it to the audience.
I won't. Editor Felix, cut this.
Cut this.
Or we'll cut your pay.
Shit.
If homesickness is directly proportional to one's homing instinct, then the exaggerated expression curse would signify the strength of that homesickness and also their homing instinct. I can assume that they hated the outside world and created an insular society precisely because of their powerful homing ability. Unfortunately, there's no way to measure the strength of the homing ability that the primitive people of Onigafuchi had. It was so strongly forbidden to leave the village that nobody left long enough to get homesick. However, after the Meiji era, things changed. The sacredness of Onigafuchi dwindled with the efforts of modernization. Many young people started longing for city life, and some people were forced to leave the village to get a job. As a result, villages started venturing outside the village borders. That was when the transcendents of Onigafuchi realized how strong their homing ability was for the first time. The residents of Hinamizawa got extremely homesick. After a while, people started to call this homesickness the curse of Oyashiro-sama. It became rumored that a person who left the village to get a job in a strange land was cursed, that he went crazy and died, and people who had left the village started coming back to it. And people who had left the village started coming back to either it or the nearby town. Their homesickness and their homing ability were very strong because of their culture. It's reasonable to think that these were cultivated by the unique religion in Hinamizawa, namely the cult of Oyashiro-sama. From the moment they were born, they were taught the rules of Oyashiro-sama. They must have felt guilty about leaving the village unconsciously. As a result, they considered their homesickness to be the curse of Oyashiro-sama. I'm not sure if their homesickness got stronger because of the rules of Oyashiro-sama, or if they made the rules of Oyashiro-sama because their homesickness got stronger. I don't know which came first. Woo! There you go. What do you make of that?
It's just very interesting to have the story address Hinamizawa syndrome as just homesickness.
Homesickness. That's what it is.
Because I very much get the impression that the story is implying that it is far more than that.
Yeah.
So I wonder if this is either Ryukishi trying to point explicitly at the subtext of it, or whether this is actually something internal to the story that we should consider when unpacking solutions.
For sure. Fair enough.
Given certain components of the story, such as the fact that we got a lot of doctors, I get the feeling that this is going to be more of a cover story than it is necessarily the truth as the story sees it.
You think there's a grain of truth there, or more than what you may have already uncovered? I don't know if you learn anything from that in particular.
I mean, it's more just that I think the story is openly exposing its allegory at this point.
For sure.
Which is not something we've seen it do very actively so far. So it was a kind of strange move.
It is a bit weird, but hey, maybe it's all just lies and it doesn't mean anything. I mean, whatever.
Exactly. It's not like Ryukishi ever tells us the truth.
No, he never does.
It's not like any scene ever means anything more than what it tells us.
That's true. I've never seen Ryukishi repeat himself either.
Exactly. It's again one of those scenes, and we have these a lot in Ryukishi stories, where it's a scene that really could mean very little, so then you have to consider why it was put there in the first place.
For sure. Yeah.
Carry on.
Maybe we'll learn something as we continue. Ah! All right, it's time to get up. I got tired of reading such small print and lay down on the floor on my back. The true identity of the curse of Oyashiro-sama is homesickness. Mio-san believed my story and she let me read these scrapbooks. That's why I expect to find something interesting. But what I'm saying is that the answer to it all is homesickness, which many doctors told me so many times at counseling. I'm a little upset. The word homesickness can't explain the extraordinary experience I had. I saw Oyashiro-sama come down on me from a bright light in the bathroom. I saw the dusky red nests and maggots come out of my blood vessels. This scrapbook doesn't explain any of that. I don't understand how Mio-san was going to explain the cloud of maggots. Maybe she didn't have an explanation of that to begin with. Was it just a delusion? I flipped through one of the other scrapbooks Mio-san let me borrow, looking for an explanation of the maggots I saw. And then, I found it. It had the exact title I was looking for. About maggots. And the curse of Oyashiro-sama.
I thought that was going to be a lot less literal.
That's it, there's maggots. We're doing this again.
It's up to you. It's your character reading someone else's writing, and that character is dead. So I can't read it, because that would just be silly.
Oh my god. You know what, I'm just going to stick with Renner Voice. Let's do it.
Go for it.
Let's go Renner Voice. In the Meiji era, a group of villagers were on their way back to Hinamizawa, and they started discussing a rumor about a weird disease. They said the maggots started crawling out of the wounds of a person who left Hinamizawa, and that the maggots ate the person's body from the inside. The Shinto priest of the Furude Shrine at that time explained that the weird disease was a sign of the curse of Oyashiro-sama. According to tradition, the Shinto priest showed the villagers an ancient scroll, and he told them that the story of the maggots had been passed down through the ages. This is what the scroll said. The world where the demons came from must be interpreted as the land of death, and the demons in the land of death had to live their lives while being eaten by maggots.
What?
Yeah, there's demons in the land of death.
Demons came from must be interpreted as the land of death.
Mm-hmm. And they're being eaten by demon maggots, or maybe regular maggots. I don't know that a regular maggot could eat a demon, but makes sense to me.
Yeah.
The villagers who were of the demon's blood had nothing to worry about as long as they lived in Hinamizawa under the protection of Oyashiro-sama. But once they left Hinamizawa, abandoned their protection, the maggots that had been sleeping in the blood of the demons would start to awaken, and they'd eat their bodies from the inside out.
See, this is going back to the whole thing of Rika being the make or break for the gas disaster, which I think I've mentioned before. I hope I have. Otherwise,
I'm sure you have.
A bit of a bombshell.
What?
But basically, the idea that Rika only died in a ritualistic way in arcs 3, 4, and arguably 1, though it wasn't on screen.
Sure.
And this whole thing of her being the reincarnation of Oyashiro-sama and thus somehow tied to the curse / Hinamizawa syndrome, like, there doesn't seem to be any causation, there's just symbolism. Which is very strange unless we actually just start accepting that Rika magically exudes the ability to not suffer the curse, which also doesn't seem to be the case because her friends are going insane and they're the ones in closest proximity to her.
This is true. It would be a bit weird.
This page is very much suggesting to me that, as I've said in the past, that the curse is separated and it's two, I thought 2, but I'm thinking 3 separate things, all described as the same phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
That being the madness, Hinamizawa syndrome, the gas disaster as a result of people betraying Oyashiro-sama is actually just the machinations of whoever, and I guess the third, which kind of lumps in with the first one, but like people's proximity to the village somehow being tied into them not suffering the curse. Or not suffering the madness. Because that doesn't make sense, that last one in particular. So there's got to be some third phenomenon that's letting that work separate from the madness existing itself, separate from the gas disaster. There has to be some third phenomenon that is actually making this being in the village protects you function, right?
Okay. Some kind of phenomenon. Like some kind of supernatural guardian deity, perhaps?
I've had it with your mentions of guardian deities, because that's rubbish.
Nah, dude, it's totally real.
The gods are dead, Ben.
That's not true. I haven't heard that in a long time.
Anyhow.
This maggot disease scared the villagers for a while, and they asked the shrine to provide them with protective talismans, because that's the thing that's protecting them.
Yeah,
whenever they had,
course.
Yeah, they took protective talismans with them whenever they had to leave the village on business. This is interesting as it's similar to the way homesickness were dealt with by the Swiss in the Middle Ages. After the war started, the delusion of the maggot disease faded away, but they remained accustomed to send talismans to families that lived away from Hinamizawa. The talismans had the word maggot on them. But the most interesting part about all this is that the residents of Hinamizawa didn't know about the maggot disease until the rumors began. I thought that their unconscious worship made those people think of homesickness as a curse. So this case of the previously known maggot disease directly contradicted the research I had done so far. It's natural to think that the group of people who were on their way back to the village were lost in a mass delusion because they strongly believed in the curse and that the Shinto priests took advantage of their state of panic to instill a deeper faith in them. But I'm not fully convinced that it was merely coincidence that this mass delusion matched with the story in the old picture scroll. Wonder if it's possible to see maggots in a wound without having the prerequisite knowledge when a person is cursed by Oyashiro-sama. Takano says, I wish Oyashiro-sama would put his curse on someone I could study.
Woo! If only there was a way to do that, Takano.
Yeah, dude. If only. I'd love to see those maggots come out of someone. Ooh, that's nasty. I felt as if Mio-san was here making that request of me.
Funny that.
Oh no, she's back! I remember. When she gave me the scrapbook, she said that I might be the only one who could understand them. I felt good just for a moment because I found out that the maggots weren't a delusion. But at the same time, it destroyed my excuse that it was a delusion. The maggots weren't a delusion, they were there. All of a sudden, my wrists, elbows, inner thighs, and neck started itching. I felt the urge to cut open a blood vessel, but I quietly held it down. I remembered that Mio-san looked very serious when I talked about the maggots. She must have thought it was creepy. But so did I. While I was crying because nobody believed me, a part of me didn't want to believe that my body was filled with those creepy things. I think part of me wanted to believe that it was delusion, but now I know it wasn't. It wasn't a delusion. There are some people who had the same experience. Maggots in the demon's blood will awaken when you lose the protection of Oyashiro-sama. In other words, they may not awaken under the protection of Oyashiro-sama. But all the villagers still had the maggots in them without knowing it. People with the demon's blood are people who have the creepy maggots in their bodies. I tried not to jump to conclusions and flip the pages again. I unconsciously looked for something related to maggots. About parasites and control of the host. The maggot disease made me think about something. Is it possible to say that the extremely strong homesickness of Hinamizawa was an infectious disease caused by some kind of parasite? I'm not trying to connect the maggots they saw with parasites. I'm trying to think about the possibility that their culture, their religion, might be associated with an infectious disease. Many infectious diseases are caused unintentionally by parasites. A parasite's host is literally its home. It wants to live within the host's body for as long as it can. The best way to do that is to coexist with the host without the host knowing it. But some parasites try to control their hosts and use them for prosperity. For example, some parasites have an ability to control their host in order to force them to be eaten by a superior host. A typical example is the Dacrocolium dendriticrum. It uses snails or ants as intermediate hosts, and it forces them to move to the upper side of vegetation so it's easier for a superior host to consume it like a bird. One parasite that controls more complicated animals is called Toxoplasma gondii. It uses mice as intermediate hosts, with the superior host being cats. This parasite makes a mouse lose its fear of cats in order to increase its chance of getting eaten so that the parasite can live within the cat instead. These are parasites that choose hosts at random. The rabies virus is commonly known for that. It lives and breeds in the brain of a host, and it moves in the host's saliva through the salivary glands. It makes the host extremely aggressive in order to make it bite things randomly so that it in turn can move into other hosts through that saliva. That's what rabies does. Many parasites have a similar ability to control hosts to their benefit. Examples I used above are about parasites that move into other hosts to prosper, but I think there must be some kind of parasite that controls its hosts in order to have a comfortable environment in which to live. I want to try to connect this theory to the abnormal homing ability and homesickness of the Onigafuchi residents. Let's say there's some kind of parasite that exists in Hinamizawa and it lives within all of the villagers' bodies. For the parasite, Hinamizawa is the most comfortable environment to live in. So it gives the host a strong homing ability in order to make him stay in Hinamizawa. Furthermore, it causes the host to get homesick whenever they ignore this homing ability and try to leave. Parasites need hosts in which to live. It's convenient for them if their hosts build a community in the environment where it feels comfortable. This theory makes it easier for me to explain the mysteries I described earlier. The transcendents of Onigafuchi knew about the existence of this parasite. They knew that, as hosts of the parasites, they couldn't live outside the village. That's why they created culture and rules that prohibited contact with the outside world. It also explains why people acted so abnormal during the dam conflict. So, the demons that came out of the swamp in the legend of Oyashiro-sama can be interpreted as the mass spread of the parasite. The story about the demons attacking the villagers must be a metaphor for the behavior of the infected villagers who were controlled by the parasite. This theory is too crazy. I should have just laughed about it, but I felt bad for Mio-san, so I decided not to. Hinamizawa was controlled by a parasite.
Sounds like some real fucking bullshit.
Nah, dude, that's totally real. Parasites, that makes sense. You could use that theory to explain how the maggots came out of me. I felt a little bit dizzy. I was so confused, and a part of me thought it was ridiculous, and another part of me thought it was more convincing than any curse. But Mio-san was probably erased because she wrote these scrapbooks. If so, the contents of these scrapbooks must be something that they can't ignore. They try to get all of her scrapbooks and consign them to oblivion, or if they notice some of her scrapbooks are missing. I felt a chill run down my spine. I had to keep it a secret that I had these scrapbooks, and I'll have to try to understand more about their contents. I remember Mio-san told me that the three families are behind the series of mysterious deaths, and that they're trying to resurrect the cult of Oyashiro-sama. According to the theory I just read, the parasite must be trying to maintain the current environment of Hinamizawa. The healthiest environment for it is a completely closed village, just like the primitive Onikafuchi. It must be very comfortable for the parasite if no hosts go outside the village. They don't even like that the villagers often leave the village to go shopping. That means that the parasite would try to goad the host into resurrecting the cult of Oyashiro-sama. I remember there was an article in the scrapbook saying that the demon's blood runs thickest in the three families. That would mean that they have a larger amount of the parasites in them than the other villages, and that they're under its control. The three families seem to be planning to bring the village back to the Onikafuchi era. Reviving the Wanton Extra Festival after the dam conflict can be interpreted as their desire to revive the faith that had started to fade away in the Meiji era. The three families, especially the Sonozaki family, have a great influence over the region and the public organizations. What's going on here? I'd thought this to be a polar theory, but the pieces fit together, one after another. I've never played a jigsaw puzzle as crazy as this.
See, this is the part where Ryukishi tries to make me think that they're actually maggots driving people insane in their blood in this village.
Why not?
Well, because, Ben, we got 6 arcs into this story with multiple corpses with blood everywhere.
Are you saying there's no maggots in their body? There's no parasites?
No maggots.
Alright, fair enough.
That's my political slogan running for president in Hinamizawa.
There's
no maggots.
There's no, parasites trying to control their brain minds?
I mean, there might be, but they certainly aren't maggots.
Alright, fair enough.
Who knows what they actually are. It's definitely some fucking Device X bullshit, and I'd like to get a murder mystery audit in here to demonstrate that this is fucking unacceptable under the rules of both one Ronald Knox, one Willard Huntington Wright, also known as SS Van Dyne. You want to know more about them, you can check out Death of the Reader. On
2SCR,
That's right.
9 p.m. AEST, and on the website.
It might be ADST by the time this
ADST,
comes out.
one of
Sydney
those.
time.
Sydney, Australia. Go to Australia, listen to the podcast.
Or online.
Online.
Or online. Links in the description.
It's also in Wishker and Spotify and
That's
stuff.
right, that's what the link in the description is for.
I know, but I want to remind the people that we have @Flux and Herds on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Yes.
All right,
God.
cut that.
We got good shills. I'm not
Advertise like a shameless whore, my friend.
That's right.
Advertise.
First we start doing reaction
like
videos.
Shameless whore.
Then we start selling products. What's next? Sponsors in the middle of a chapter.
UFO Commander, sponsor us.
Could you imagine just getting to the middle of a really tense scene of Higurashi and just being like,
yeah.
Before we continue, let us tell you about our sponsor today.
Bud White, let's go. Anti-maggot. Look, can we get some pest control sponsors? I'm just saying.
That's a good idea.
We are clearly anti-maggot people.
Pesticides is clearly a healthy industry that we should be
that's the one.
Supporting on our fucking
with our tax dollars.
Ass plate.
That's it. Get on it. Pest control people sponsor us.
That's a terrible idea.
Rena Ryugu hates pests. You can help her find them with this one quick trick. Link in the description. I felt my brain swelling due to this absurd theory about pesticides. A part of me thought this was ridiculous, another part of me thought I might be able to expose an unbelievable truth. When I tried to look into the center of it, it felt as if I was going to fall into the whirlpool and drown. I'll have to devote myself to reading more seriously. There must be some truth to this. It caused misfortune and made my life miserable after I moved to Ibaraki. I might be able to find the truth, including the cause of my parents' divorce and my desperate behavior.
Oh God, what was that?
Right then, I heard a knock on the door of a sudden. It scared me right quick. I hear the scrapbooks under recursion.
I was really hoping it wasn't gonna be your dad.
Good luck.
Rainy, you have a phone call.
I promise you he's not in the anime as much. A phone
I don't
call?
have to voice him in the anime.
A phone call this late? Who is it?
It's from a bookstore. Did you order some books? I said they were Ushi-san from the Okinomiya bookstore.
He's up to his old tricks again.
He is too.
That's the chapter.
Wow, that was a short chapter, conveniently timed with our goddamn half-hour rant.
I'm okay with it. It's almost like I intercepted this perfectly.
Oh, perfect. This next bit better not be just like 15 minutes long and we look like absolute goofs next time.
That's fine. We can just edit it together. It's fine. Do a fix it post.
No editing.
Even this conversation is edited in. Straight up.
Dude, that's next level.
It's the most meta shit, dude.
Holy crap.
That's what this playthrough is about. But yeah, that was a pretty short chapter. I feel like we did more like discussing than actual reading, which is, to be fair, like disregarding the half-hour chat, which, to be fair, is how a good episode should be.
I agree. Really, every single video should just be a page with an hour of analysis on it.
That makes sense to me. I mean, isn't that what all like academic essays are? They're like 4 hours of discussion of 5 minutes of historical time. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Academics.
Fucking academics.
Next time.
Next time.